Lead the charge with Milwaukee. Performance, power, precision, no petrol hassles. Learn more at milwaukeetool.com.au. Milwaukee, nothing but heavy duty. Aces, I know I always talk about the RIXXs, but I got to offer you the discount again. In case you've forgotten or in case you're sleeping under a rock, we have a special discount code for everyone that listens to this podcast or watch the podcast. It's ACES. Head online to rixeyewear.com.au and use the discount code ACES and you'll get 20% off. That's right, 20% off, 1/5 at checkout and free express shipping. So head online, rixeyewear.com.au and check it out. All right, do we have a big show for you today? Let's get stuck into it. Welcome back, everybody. Tommy Talks podcast, joined by some royalty again. Last time we had this man on the podcast, we spoke a bit about business. It was the Aces in Business podcast. We've kind of turfed that now, Wispy, because everyone wants the entertainment and the sport angle. But welcome back to the pod. Joe Watson in the house.
Nice to see you, Tommy. It's been a while.
It has been a while. NFL back. I feel like we start to all just reconnect.
Yes.
So kind of go quiet for 6 months, don't we? And then now we're all lunatics.
At the start of the NFL, the finals footy for the AFL, it's all happening.
I've got a question here about your alarm. I just had a random discussion with someone the other night. What is your alarm in the morning?
My children.
I was thinking that. So you don't even set one?
I don't need to set one.
There you go.
I've got 3 kids. So normally it's 6 a.m. alarm is off, and that's someone shouting at me for a bottle or something.
Is that kind of good knowing that, when you go to bed, you don't have to worry about your alarm because the kids will just wake you up? Or?
Yeah, it's nice. Like I've got my almost 5-year-old, almost 3-year-old, they share a bedroom. And they sort of wake up in the middle of the night and she's having, she has a bad dream or something like that. And so I go in there and sleep on the floor in their rooms. So it's actually nice as a parent. You wake up and you hear them talking about, with each other about what they're going to do that day and all sorts of things. So one day they won't want me anywhere near them. So I may as well make the most of it now.
Yeah, you make the most of it until they get to that age. How are you going with it all? 3 kids.
Yeah, it's good, mate. It's busy. We sort of, the youngest turned 1 a couple months ago. So that's for any parent, they'll tell you that first birthday is a bit of a milestone. So you start to get some regularity. We're lucky with sleeping. So you start to feel a little bit like you're normal again when you're starting to sleep well, and they just grow up so quickly, So we've got them all close together, but we're very fortunate that, they're all happy and healthy, and we send the eldest off to school next year, so it moves very quickly.
Are those little milestones really exciting?
They are, yeah. Yeah, you do. Your life and your perspective of life changes completely when you become a parent. So you just really you love seeing them come back from kinder and their days, and you ask them what they'd been doing, and all those little things that you take for granted, you get to relive through them, and it brings a lot of joy.
What's something that has made you laugh recently when they've come home from school and told you something? Just give us a little bit of an insight where you've just gone, that's very funny.
Well, they're just Juniper's. She comes home singing songs and things like that she's been learning at school, and so she just breaks out into dancing and songs out of nowhere, which is nice to see. And then our middle one, he's starting to get bored being at home, so every day they ask me what they're doing that day. Like, what are we doing? What activity have we got on? Oh, these kids are already spoiled. The expectations are too high, but no, they're great. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, brilliant, mate. No, I love hearing that. I remember last time we caught up for a coffee, you were struggling.
Probably,
I said the first time I've seen weakness. I didn't think there was any weakness with this bloke.
It tests you like nothing else.
Few other ones before we get into it. I'm always keen to hear about just little things like yourself and other people that so wise. Any podcasts or any books that you're reading at the moment that you're into? What are you doing with your spare time?
Look, I listen to 2 podcasts every week. One is the GM Shuffle. It talks about the NFL, which we love, and it's a guy called Michael Lombardi, who was an ex-GM, scout at the Raiders, and then a GM of the Cleveland Browns, and he talks about his learnings through the NFL, and then he talks about the weekly happenings of through the eyes of a GM. So what you hear about is a lot of the news and things like that, and commentary and talking heads about the NFL, but you don't really get to hear about what it's like in a position of an executive. And so I really enjoy listening to that. And he's a really entertaining podcaster, and I find it great because I love the NFL. So that's something I listen to every week.
Yeah, nice.
And then there's another group that a friend of mine put me onto called the All In Pod. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
Tom Brady?
No, this is 4 guys from Silicon Valley who are sort of in venture capital, and they are really, really insightful, and I really enjoy listening to it because it sort of cuts through, I guess, a lot of the noise that you hear in the media world, and they're very intelligent. They've been interviewing the presidential candidates from both sides recently, so they had Chris Christie on, they had Kennedy, they had Vivek on, and you get to hear these guys being interviewed. They're asking real questions and not just, questions that I guess scripted. They're sort of drilling down to what the real problems are. What are you going to do about it? And I love politics, but you see how dysfunctional it's become, particularly in America and here in Australia as well. As there's no difference, but they're able to ask the real pointed questions, get to the answers, and then they've got a huge amount of wealth and knowledge in startups in the VC world. So really, really interesting podcast.
That sounds really cool. I have to check that one out. So what was it called?
It's called the All In Pod. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So a bit of NFL and a bit of business as well, and politics. So yeah, that's right up everyone's alley, I'd imagine. How is business going, mate? Last time we were here, we were talking about a few of your businesses. Can you give us an update on all of them?
Yeah, look, the property market has been tough. It's been with the way in which the rates have risen and the economy started to slow. It's meant that the volume of properties transacting has gone down as serviceability has become tougher for people, and that's lack of supply has meant that there has been a build-up of demand, but the demand is probably softer than what it would typically be, maybe 30% softer. But that's probably been supported by a lack of supply as well. So, we talked a lot of commentary about a lot of loans rolling over from fixed to variable, from say 2.5% to 6.5%, and the forcing of liquidation by people probably hasn't manifested itself yet. A lot of investors having to sell properties just because of serviceability and the costs. And I understand that rents are very high, but that hasn't been supported by the cost of borrowing money. So whilst rents have gone up, the cost of owning property has gone up more so that a lot of investors are having to sell, which is not nice for people who are forced sellers or selling at a loss. So some difficulty in the housing market, and I think that you'd love to be able to say that we're at the end of the rate cycle. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think that inflation it hasn't just dissipated completely. And whether or not it will, I don't necessarily believe that it will. I think that we might be in an environment of higher rates for a longer period of time. So that will put more pressure on the economy.
A lot of people listening not liking that. How long period of time? How long is that, you reckon?
Well, I don't know that there be personally, I don't think that you want to be cutting rates until probably 2025. 2026
and why is
maybe.
That, you reckon?
Well, I just think in the 1970s they thought that they'd got rid of inflation, and so they started to ease, and they didn't actually stamp inflation out at all. It's still a very hot jobs market, traditionally very high, and I think that the balance or the cash rate of 2 to 3% is probably something that isn't going to be the case anymore. I think that's going to move to a higher rate. So 4% might be the neutral rate moving forward, and it might be that with this really hot sort of jobs market that we have, that we're not in a position to start lowering or cutting rates back in the short term. So I think that there's a lot of trepidation about starting to cut too soon, because of history says that you want to stamp inflation out completely, and in a jobs market where it's so low, it's probably a warning sign to not start easing rates too soon.
Yeah, well said. Great for everyone out there listening. Get a little bit of education on the market. What about the stock market? Are you heavily involved in the stock market?
I am.
I love how you paused. I was like, I've asked a shit question here. No. It's down. Is it down a little bit? Do you get nervous about the stock market? There's you read a lot of articles, and it's never, like you said, that's what I need to listen to that podcast, because it's real and they ask real questions, and it's probably not that jargon we read every day that's going to get you the clicks to the website and the articles. Stock market, are we in a little bit of a tough time right now? Should we be nervous, or no, we'll be fine?
Well, I think that it probably feels like it's a little bit frothy, the market overall. And it will be, whether or not they can sort of stamp out inflation. The market is expecting that inflation's sort of behind us now, and because it is always looking forward, it's sort of saying, okay, well, like that's something in the rearview mirror. And now if that doesn't sort of dissipate in the future, then the market could correct itself pretty quickly. I think Australia's in a great position. We rode a huge economic boom in China with iron ore, and that facilitated a huge amount of economic growth here. I think we're in, a great position to ride the next green metals ride, and that will be something that Australia might end up supplying, 50% of the world's lithium. We're low sovereign risk. We're pro-market, pro-capital markets. You've seen a lot of M&A activity in Western Australia, particularly in the lithium space, because I think that there's, people are trying to shore up supply in the future as the world sort of starts to turn more green, and I think Australia might be able to position itself, or should position itself, to ride that EV transition, that wave of green metals, as we did in the iron ore. Don't think that China's going to be the one that's going to be buying, huge amounts of iron ore from us, but the rest of the world and China might be wanting to buy our lithium.
What about copper? Because the big fella you're looking at's invested heavily into copper.
I think copper's part of it. Copper, nickel, and lithium. Those green metals that are, there is a short supply of them all. Commodities are harder to find than what they were, and it's more expensive to find them. So when you find a company or companies that are able to make it economical, they will be able to, ride this wave.
Yeah. No, I love it. Love everything you're saying there. It's
you're talking from your hip pocket.
Yeah, oh yeah. Hip pocket's loaded in that area, North Queensland. Are we allowed to talk about stocks we're on? How's that work?
Of course you are.
Yeah, well, Superior Resources, SVQ. There's a lot of our mates and family are on, and it's because of things like that. We think there's a bit of a shortage, and copper and nickel, they do it all at this in this stock that we've heavily loaded, but it's a bit flat at the moment. It's been a yo-yo. The stock market is a yo-yo, and it's a wave of results, and you get the assays, and and then it's good, and it's a great announcement, and the stock price goes down, and then your group chat's going, what's going on here? And so SBQ is the one that we're all loaded up on. I'll have to show you that one after this, and it's literally what you're talking about. So that's why when you were talking, I don't know, I was trying not to laugh. I was sitting there going, he's telling me everything I want to hear right now. The boys listening that have loaded up on SPQ will be loving this, because I've always mentioned, we'll bring it up on the podcast and hopefully we get a little hit.
Okay. But this hat is actually a company in Western Australia.
Oh, there you go. Wildcat Resources. And lithium are they doing lithium? And it's pumping at the moment, lithium.
It is, yeah.
So how is the pocket with Wildcat?
Well, hopefully it's going to be successful.
We should just sit here and pump up our stock.
Wait and see.
Yeah, it's good. It is good fun. Love it, mate. Love it. Let's I'm really keen to get into footy. We didn't really talk much footy last time, and I got a few abusive messages. I think
did you?
when you and Maisie were on, we did the NFL podcast, and someone, I can't remember who it was. We keep it positive here, but what a disgrace getting two blokes like this on and talking NFL. I said, come on, mate, we're doing an NFL show, but it did remind me we should talk a bit of footy. Who do you support?
Well, I don't really support anyone. Like I've got an emotional connection to Essendon, but I don't sit there and barrack for any teams. I just watch the games.
Yeah, it's like that, isn't it?
It is when one of the things that I went back and did some coaching at my old school this year, and you forget what footy means to a 16, 17-year-old. When you play it and it becomes your job, you forget what that feeling's like. So it was great to be able to reconnect with kids who are playing the game just because they love the game and the purity of it. Because once you're into the AFL system and, I stayed at one club, but you went to a few clubs, like it becomes more of a job for you. And so when you're out of it, you don't look back at it as like you want your friends and people to do well and you support them. But it's not something that you're like, oh, God, I've got to go to every game and watch. At least for me, that's not how I feel.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. I mean, I've probably got more of a connection to Giants being the past club and I guess we keep in touch as much. But, yeah, you're right. It's a bit weird. When you're talking like, I know NFL, you're a Raiders man and you're like, you would go every week. That's like a genuine passion. But I've always wanted to ask that because even I grew up barracking for Essendon and everyone always asks me, who do you go for? And I go, well, I love just supporting the teams I played for and the boys that I'm really close with. And I grew up barracking for Essendon, but to be honest, every bloke that I used to barrack for, they become mates or they're no longer in the system. And then it's just a completely different outfit, and it's, right. I was interested. Well, while I'm on Essendon, because it's not like, you're talking, I'm a fringe player, I played 9 seasons and it was 7 at, the Freo and 2 at the Giants, where you were like, you're club legend, you're captain, you've done so much for the Essendon Footy Club. How do you go watching the Dons when every year, you see all the articles and all the noise, and it's, obviously, I think this year they definitely took a step forward personally, but how do you go watching them and then seeing sometimes the same stuff?
Yeah, I guess there's some frustration for it as someone who's been there at the club. I thought that they took a step forward as well. I thought that they really there was some real improvement. There was a system that they were playing. I think that they got exposed by their lack of depth. They got exposed with their profile of their list. In the end, and that was probably a good thing. As difficult as it was to watch them be like they were in the last few rounds, I think it gave them a dose of reality about where they actually were. I think that they probably, Brad is going to have a time to build, and he should. And if the club isn't going to allow him, like a 3 to 5 year period, then they're sort of wasting everyone's time in terms of being in the competition because they're not understanding how the competition works. Now, as an Essendon supporter and a person who's heavily involved in the club, I think that the disappointing thing for the Essendon Football Club and the supporters is the team was sort of loaded to be really competitive and give us a chance sort of between 2012 and 2016, really. That was when our list profile was right. We had a really strong, group of players. We had talent, but we also had the right demographic as well. Unfortunately, we were then we were in a situation where it didn't allow us to have that sort of success, and the circumstances meant that we lost players who were really good players who, had we kept that group together and had it been unencumbered, we probably would have been a team that, had multiple years of playing in the finals or being competitive, and then maybe it wouldn't be a 20-year drought between the last time the club had been successful and then this time. The supporters wouldn't be so thirsty and hungry because they'd had that period. And I just feel like the balance of where the list is at this now is it's still, it's two or 3 years away. And that's the reality of where they're at. they in hindsight maybe they thought that they were closer than what they were in 2018, and they made decisions based off that, and it hasn't worked out. Now that's the job of the people at the club. They make those calls. That's what they're employed to do. When it doesn't work out, they end up bearing the consequences for it. But that's where I think that they're at.
Well said. What's the list need to look like? You said it's 2 years away from what you think is going to be sustained success. That patch of 3-4 years of just being competitive and having a red hot crack, like you see Brisbane at the moment. They've been around for ages, and I personally think that it's their year. What does the list need? And with that 2 year period, are you saying it's just going to be another couple of years of draft picks and another couple of years of draft picks with maybe a few trades and here and there? What is it?
Yeah, I would say that you would need probably 6 guys who have played between 150 and 250 games in your team, and then you'd want 12 to 14 between 75 and 150, and then your last 4 to 6 is probably 0 to 75.
Your youth,
that's right,
energy and spark,
and those guys need to have played. That you want those 12 guys who are in the team every week have played 80% of their time with each other. So they've built that continuity and that chemistry, and that's the reality of how a list demographic should look when you go out to play. That's, in my view, how it should be. You should have 6 guys who have played between 150 and 250 games in your team, and then the bulk of it should be between that 75 and 150, and then there should be only 5 or 6 that are played under that.
You're a very wise man, and someone that even I, that I looked up to you when I was younger playing footy. A lot of people have. Have you ever been approached to go back to the Essendon Footy Club and coach and mentor these kids or do anything in the football club? No,
I haven't. I don't
want to cut you off, but that staggers me that they haven't invited you back.
Well, I've been pretty clear, I think, to them that I'm not interested at this point. Yeah, and that's sort of something that's come from me towards them. Yeah. So.
And that's just because you need a spell. You want to, build your life, doing what you're doing now, and then when the time comes, there might be a little spark, and you'll go, "Yep, I'm ready." Yeah,
potentially. Yeah, I think that I wanted to be out of the system for a while. I'd been there for 17 years. It had been an enjoyable but exhaustive period, and I needed to move away and do something else. And part of that's been starting a family, and so that takes up that's priority number one. So I can't and haven't been able to afford the time to go back into that industry, and haven't really had the inclination.
Yeah, and then you're saying you're coaching. You're back where you started.
Yep.
Does that give you a bit of spark to get back into it?
I've really enjoyed going back to the school and being involved with kids at that age, and that love of footy, and I think that's probably been a really enjoying environment to be a part of. And you do get a reminder of what it's like, what the purity of the game is and the joy that people can have for it. And so that there is a spark there from that sense. But it's probably, I don't think it's something that is, I guess, pushed me to, or jolted me to want to jump back into the AFL.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well said. It's a big jump.
Yeah.
You see it, I always say, and no disrespect to head coaches, but you start to worry about their mental health when you start to watch them over a period of time, because especially when they're losing, it just looks like they can look miserable sometimes, and it looks like a very high stress job. So when you got a young family, it'd be a fair commitment juggling both. And as you know, you're just trying to get some sleep at the moment.
That's right. Yeah, I think what speaking to people who are involved at Collingwood, for example, that the environment hopefully will change for coaches and assistant coaches and people in football departments, because it should. It's not sustainable to just exhaust people that way and for them to be living like that. And I don't think it's healthy for them. So I think I was speaking to Hayden Skipworth from Collingwood, and he said, look, the work-life balance as a Collingwood assistant coach is the best I've ever had in the league. And that should be something that is celebrated by the rest of the competition. And I think that, coaches, they took really big pay cuts in the COVID period out of necessity, but they probably need, and they weren't afforded that balance either. They were asked to do more for less. A lot of people in the industry were, and that was the time. But I think that to be able to grow the game and have the game flourish, you want to be able to reward those people and be able to provide them with a really good work-life balance, so that they've got really stable family lives, and they're feeling fulfilled in that aspect of their lives. And then they can come to work and be the best version of themselves as well. So I think that hopefully the competition moves more in that direction.
Yeah, well said. The Pies are doing everything right, aren't they? Like, from the outside looking in, Fly's just the king. Like,
when you're winning, you're everything looks good.
You hear about how they, just even I never watch press conferences.
Yeah.
If he's on Friday night footy or Saturday night footy and I'm watching, I'll watch his press conference. I really enjoy his mindset, what he says. It looks like real. There's no, I'm going to a press conference, I'm going to tell everyone what they want to hear. It's just, he is who he is. I don't know, I just feel like, and then you speak to the players will tell you. Yeah. And they're like, what you see is what you get. Yeah. And you're like, outstanding. Yeah. That's a bit of a coach. It's a bit of a teaching background as well, which is fascinating. Back to the 16-year-old kids that you're coaching. What are the this is a question I want to ask, because a lot of listeners and viewers watching right now might be parents, or they might be might have kids, or they might be young kids growing up. What are the main things you want to teach 15, 16-year-olds in your opinion when you're coaching? What's some things that you're very your game plan, Wispy's game plan, when you go to the game, you rock up, your non-negotiables?
Yeah, I'm trying to teach them about like a culture and values. So that's been the real emphasis. Really wanting to highlight the fundamentals of the game and what they look like, and be really really good at those. I don't think it's worthwhile teaching people, overloading people with tactics and things like that, especially at that age. I don't know that you're necessarily helping them, but what I'm trying to do is teach them about the importance of what values will do for a collective, but then what you can then do with them once football's no longer there, or if it's something else that you're going into. And so that's been the real emphasis of the year, is about, okay, what are the values that you guys want to be known for? And then how do we keep measuring ourselves against those things, and why are those things important? And so that was really the philosophy of the year, is be teaching fundamentals and have that intertwined with a strong core value group.
Do you mind sharing, or is that a secret?
It's probably just for the school, but it's something that, like, I said to the school, is that anyone who's part of the football program, whether they're in year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, they should be able to they should be having the same values, so that those kids who start in year 6, by the time they get to year 12, they're very much embedded in the culture of the football. And those things will then, because those values will transition into everyday life for them. So if they're able to recognise and have those, then they'll build a really strong cultural element to the program, but they'll also be able to take those with them and help them once they leave the school.
When you have new leaders, they come in, they set values, and it's a trademark, as we would call it. So is this something that you've brought to the program, or is this something that's already been there and you've kind of
I think that they had them, but we wanted them to be the 2023 and moving forward. So we wanted to establish what ours were, and let's continue with them.
Yeah, nice. Well said. Well, speaking about leadership, you've done it at one of the, at the highest level in sport. So I just wanted to talk about leadership. Who is someone that's mentored you? Who's someone that you go to for advice?
Well, I guess, strong, always family, something that is, for me, is always being able to lean on and have, them as sounding boards, strong friendship groups that I can go to with people and ask questions. They're probably my two areas that I speak to most of.
Nice. What about your old man? I'm keen to chat to you about your old man. I don't think I've ever asked you, even just privately. What impact does he have on your life? Even your working life as well. Obviously, family is an obvious one, but I do see you. You're commentating. You both played at the Dons. He's everywhere as well. He's a very intelligent man. So are you. What's your relationship like with your old boy?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, father-son relationships, they're always sort of funny, aren't they?
Yeah.
But no, we share a lot of the same passions, and that's meant that we're able to connect on things. And I've always had him and mum and enormous support from them throughout my journey through the AFL and then post-life and parental life. But at the moment now, I sort of ask the most questions about being a parent.
Yeah.
And that's just how life changes for you. Things become more relevant for you. But no, I'm very fortunate to have had a really good relationship with them all.
Yeah, love it, mate. Love it. Your old boy's, I loved his work. The other day I saw a little clip and he was peppering and he was great. It was a bit like your podcast with the boys from Silicon Valley. It was real questions and he was peppering, I think it's the chairman of Essendon.
Dave Barham, was it?
Yeah, it was about Dodoro and his role because he's been the only one that's still there and everyone knows Adrian and lovely guy and I was loving his work. I just thought this is no sugar coating on this. It's just direct and he wasn't letting go and I think he did a great job and he's doing really well. Back to leadership, I'm looking down because I don't want to mumble this question. How do you get your mindset right to show up to lead every day and in times where you just don't feel like leading? So days where it's tough, you've been there. How do you get your mindset right because you are the leader and how did you do it?
Well, it is a challenge, but I think that if you always try and take a moment. Say if you were going to the football club and things were difficult or whatever it was, or you weren't in a great frame of mind yourself, you take a period as I was driving out to the club to talk myself through what are the challenges, what are my own personal challenges, what do I need to do, what are the people expecting from me, and go through that process. And also then be able to communicate with people that I felt like I could view them as a leader. Like I had Simon Goodman as a line coach for me for a period of time. So I would be able to go to Goody and say, like, what do you think here? You're someone who I think is a really great leader. I need some advice. What should I do? Neil Craig was there at Essendon for a period of time. He was another person that I could go to and say, what would you do here? So I don't think you should ever stop self-reflecting and never stop seeking to be better or seeking advice from someone else. You never know. I think the worst thing you can do in a position of leadership is feel like you can't continue to learn and educate. So those are the two things that I would always try to focus on would be to and not meditate, but just sort of self-reflect in a moment of quiet, and then get yourself in the right mindset to be in a position of leadership. And that's why it's difficult because it doesn't. You're not able to choose when you want to be one. So you have to understand that it is uncompromising and it's not something that you can switch on and switch off. It's like being a parent. You don't stop being a parent because you're tired.
Time out.
I need a rest here.
Time out. I'm no longer a skipper voice.
Correct. And so that's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah. And does that wear you down over time?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's exhausting over a period of time, and I think it's I stepped away from being the captain in my last year as a player, and I think it was a good decision to do that, and it allows someone else to flourish and still be there as a sort of someone who can guide. But it is exhausting, and I think that there's a tendency to probably give leadership responsibility to young players who are really great, young players, and also really you think like they're going to be a really good leader, and they are. But I don't know necessarily that it's something that should be thrust upon someone who's under the age of 25. That would be my advice.
Yeah, too much responsibility, do you think?
Well, I just don't think your maturity is right for it. I don't think you need that level. I think you can be cultivated still. So much growing that you're doing between that period of time. And even when I got to 30, I was like, oh God, I wish I knew what I know at 30 when I was 25 when I took, and I still think that now. And so you're continually growing. I just don't know that you need to be exposed at that young age.
Yeah, well said. What's the most valuable piece of leadership advice that you've received that's impacted your leadership style for the better?
I always, you have to be genuine to who you are because everyone sees through that if you're not. So the moment you stop being real with the people you're leading, then you lose them. So that would be my advice: is you can never manufacture who you are, and if you're just not a good leader, don't pretend that you are. Like you go and learn how to be a better leader. You don't have to be a great leader. Not everyone who's a great player is a great leader. So that's the thing, is just because you've got a title doesn't mean you're a good leader. Yeah, well said. I think that's a big one, isn't it? I think when people get voted into certain scenarios, when we're talking football clubs, whether it's a leadership group or it's captain, we understand that there's more meetings and there's more responsibilities and, you got to maybe report to a few more things. But once you start seeing the shift of, how they act, it does sometimes, the group starts to go, fuck, Jesus, he's taking this a bit too seriously. Like, we didn't vote him in for that. Or, that's what can happen. Or it's like, oh, no, like, he hasn't changed. Like, we love him. It doesn't change at all. Like, he's still the same person, Sometimes their leadership style is actually not speaking much and you just go up to them and tell them how you're feeling in scenarios and they'll feed it in or whatnot. But I think that's great, yeah. Because nothing turns you off more than seeing a bloke that then gets the title and changes. Yeah, I think it's also, some people just aren't naturally good leaders. That's okay. You might be a great player, but you're not a great leader. And you only discovered that when you were in a position of leadership. Yeah. Some people are just naturally great leaders. People gravitate towards them. They want to be around them. They might have other flaws in their character, but they have something about them that people gravitate towards and want to follow. And I think that any environment should be able to identify those people, and that's a key sort of skill set, is to be able to identify who is a really good leader and why, what makes them a good leader, and then how can we help them be even better. Speaking of leadership, last question: what are the qualities that you look for in a leader? Not only football, I'm talking life, business. Now that you're in the commentary space as well, like, just as you float through and put your different hats on, you got your Wildcat Resources hat on, give them a plug. But when you put all these different hats on, what are the values that you really now reflect on and go, yeah, that's what I like to be surrounded by? Well, I think a great leader, they stand in front of everyone when things are bad, and they stand behind someone when everything's good. So, they've got a level of humility about them. They understand how to get the best out of people. That's sort of what I look for, is they have to be able to perform in whatever environment they are. So they have to be an elite performer at what they do, but then they have to be willing and they have to be able to identify and have a lot of sort of, I guess, emotional intelligence to understand how to manage people underneath them. Yeah, I'm actually visualizing it. I love it. Well said. We'll move on. Let's go to commentary. I want to know how you got into it. Well, it was sort of just Channel 7 reached out to me a couple of years ago just to do a one-off sort of commentating for an Essendon game one night. And so I did it. I hadn't really had any involvement back in the game, and I just enjoyed it. And then they sort of asked again couple of weeks later, and I did it sort of one-off. And then as the years sort of went on, they would ask a little bit more frequent. Then they sort of said, look, have you got any interest in it? And I said, well, I enjoy the game and commentating. I like, because the content is in front of you and you just talk about the content. It's not all-encompassing for me. It doesn't feel like work. And that's been the balance that I've sort of kept with it. Something that is it's challenging. It's a very sort of unique skill that you have to learn in a craft. But I've liked that challenge, and I've liked that it's kept me involved in the game, but it hasn't felt like work to me.
Yeah, that's great. A little bit of passion in there.
Yeah.
When you say there's a craft to it, what have you? If you look back at your first day at the office, and then you look back and you laugh, but to now, and you're obviously going to keep upskilling. What have you learnt about the role?
I think that you need to be concise. You need to be authoritative in terms of you can't be sitting on the fence.
So it's decision.
Yeah, you've got to say what it is that you're seeing. And then the really sort of, I guess, intricate part of the skill set is you've got to talk to what the audience is seeing, not what you're seeing. So there's no point saying stuff that the audience can't connect with. And they connect with what they see. So they are seeing something on the screen. If you're talking about something else, it's difficult for them to have that connection or to understand that. So you need to be able to talk to what they're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, well said. Because you're saying with all that footy nous you've got, and you might see something developing behind the play, there's no point talking about that because the TV is right on the action.
That's what the audience is seeing. So you need to talk to what the audience is seeing.
Who's been someone that's really helped you in that commentary role?
Well, the guys that I've worked with have been very helpful. Yeah, so I've been able to work with Hamish and Luke Darcy and James Brayshaw and BT, and then through the special commentaries it was Cameron Ling and the Duck a couple of years ago, and now with Daisy. So everyone has been very helpful. Dad will send me messages and things like that
bit of
feedback about what you're saying.
Give us a quick message of feedback. I love this.
No, he just says you're rambling too much,
which is good, right?
It is, yeah, because you don't think about that all of a sudden because you're trying to do so many different things at a time, and you've just got to remember that you got to be concise.
Quick statement, in and out.
What
about the chemistry in the box? Are you guys like pinching each other behind the scenes and going, "I got one, boys," or is it just you start to build that chemistry when you're calling a game?
You do. You start to build the chemistry, so you understand when someone's pausing. You put your hand up if you need to say something, but you also got to understand that you've got to be out before the play is moving on. Especially if you in the moments of the game. So if it's there's 50 points in the games are over, you can be more conversational. And if the game is still playing, you can still talk. But if it's 3 minutes to go and the scores are level, no one wants to hear more than a very quick snippet from you because the game is what people want to be hearing.
Yeah.
And that's the role of the commentator to tell that. So those idiosyncrasies of the commentary. Part of the way in which you've got to do it.
Yeah, when you're speaking, I'm picturing it. You know what I mean? You're right. Like no one wants to hear you talking when the game's back in motion. But a stoppage, bang, get in there, a bit of a 10-second chance.
Out. Yeah.
You just named the people, mate. There's some, I'd imagine there's a few head wobbles or whatever. There's a few big alphas there. Daisy's there as well, obviously, but. The personalities in the commentary box, like obviously I know BT really well, but talk to me, like even the Duck, like what are all these big weapons like? Like is there an alpha in the room? Well,
I think that I think Duck's probably he's the biggest alpha, and that's sort of how he ran. That was his career. But everyone else has been very good to work with. Yeah. There's a lot of we have a lot of fun with it. And the guys are really good. Everyone's been in the AFL system, so they understand that they understand, teams, and that you have to work with each other. So they have that skill set.
BT talks about James Brayshaw as being unbelievable and really helping everyone else. How's he been in the commentary box? Because he reckons he's got a real art to like just getting the group going.
No, he's very good at it. He's great at leading you into things, and he's great at giving advice as well. And BT called me a few times as well to say, look, what you're doing here is really good. You should be focused on this when I was starting out, which was great too, because it's not something that there's not a lot of people doing it, and the feedback part of it. Which players are really used to. You're used to getting a lot of feedback. So there's when there's none, there's that uncertainty. Am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? What should I hear? What should I be working on? So it's great to be able to have that guidance from people who are really good at it.
Love it, mate. Love it. Yeah. Well, I remember I share a story with everyone here. The BT invited me to the box. I think Essendon were playing Freo.
Okay.
And it was Hayden Crozier's first game, and I was in there and I was feeding him some dribble. I said, "Oh, mate, he's cut like he's got the." I don't know. I was feeding BT and he was running with it. Right, it was hilarious. And all Croz's like, I think Instagram might have just launched and his phone was blowing up. He's like, "This bloke's he's got a 6-pack hard as a rock. He got great Parmesan cheese on it. That's it." Like all this stupid shit. I think I was feeding him, but then I was in the box and watching him go and he's commentating. And I don't know where the game was close. I can't really remember, but then I was just noticing like how it works. You know, they get some stats and they read it out. Like it's a very slick operation up there.
It is, yeah. And you got a lot of producers and people in your ears, and you got to go, out of an ad break into an ad break. What are we doing here? What's the vision saying? Can I cut that piece of vision to show it here? Can we do something like this at halftime? Who do we want to talk about? All those sorts of things. So there's a lot of work that goes into a production.
Do you get a bit of adrenaline doing it?
Because yeah. Particularly like we did the game, the Swans Collingwood prelim last year up at the SCG, and like that was very, very hot, particularly that last quarter, when Collingwood were coming and, like you get excited about it. It's great.
That's awesome. What is the aspirations in the space? Last question with commentary. Like, is it a grand final call? Is that or you're doing it for fun? That'll come. Yeah,
no, just enjoy it. I don't, it doesn't feel like work for me. So I really just enjoy being part of it.
Yeah, nice. Love it, mate. Love it. Got some quick fire questions. I asked Joel Selwood this, and I actually enjoyed these, so I've stuck them around.
Okay.
So these are quick fire. So, your teammates out there that miss out, don't be dirty. They're quick fire, so front of mind. Okay. Who's the most talented teammate you've ever seen?
Damien Cupido.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Toughest teammate?
Probably James Hird.
Yes. Tough as well.
Yeah.
What a star. Smartest teammate?
Dean Rioli.
Funniest teammate?
Michael Hibberd.
Yeah, Hibbo. What a man. What about Kepler Bradley?
Yeah, Kepler was mad.
Did he come out because he was very funny at Freo, but he was a bit older, so maybe he was a bit shy.
He was like that from the moment he arrived at Essendon. Our first time he came to the club, we went on a trip to Cannes River, and he was mad then as a 17-year-old. Mad.
I love that.
Yeah.
Most underrated teammate?
I think Hurls probably, like Hurls was rated highly, but he was a real star for a period of time. So probably Michael Hurley.
Yeah, a bit of a swingman as well. You could put him anywhere.
You could, yeah.
Who's the teammate with the best rig you've ever seen?
Best rig. Cale Hooker's probably 6'5" and big man.
Yeah, he's a big specimen. Yeah, big hooksy.
Yeah.
What about, let's flip it. Who's got the sloppiest rig?
Hibbo's got the sloppiest.
The pig. He'll hate that, won't he? He's a very good man. I love Hibbo. What about teams you struggled playing against the most over your whole career? Who was the team that you go, geez, I really do, like on reflection, I really struggled to play against them, or we struggled to play against them?
Probably the Adelaide Crows. We got fixed up a fair few times over there at Football Park, which, they belted us in a final one time. We got one really memorable win, which was the start of the 2013 season over there. Adelaide had come off a prelim final, and we played them round one over there at Footy Park. But that was really one of the only times we fixed them up.
There you go. I love how you really remember it. We all do. We all do. Who's the best player you've ever played against in the midfield?
Probably Gary Jr.
Yep. If you could recruit one player in the AFL at the moment, let's say you have to bring him to Essendon.
Yep. Zach Butters.
So you're going to go with a midfielder.
Yep. I think I know Bont is the leader of the club, and he's been an unbelievable sort of captain of the Bulldogs. But I feel like Zach Butters is the best player in the game for me.
Is that because we talk about that, moulding a team for success? You love the way he rolls the sleeves up, gets real dirty, can tackle, pressure, but also he's that good with the ball now, kicks goals. Are you saying that he's the player that you need in that midfield in a team?
Yeah, and I just think that he's able to do, like you talked about, he is able to do everything. He's tough. He can run. He can spread, but he's elevated, I think, his decision making and what he can do with the ball now to a level that is very, very rare that you don't see at all in the game. There's only really, really elite players who see the things that he sees. And then because of that, he's able to make the game easier for everyone around him when he has the ball in hand. And that's combining with all the other attributes that he has. So I've seen that elevation in his game, particularly this year, where I see him see things on the ground that are like, oh, there's not many people who see this.
Yeah, well said. He's had a great season, hasn't he? He's had a great career. He's very, very tough.
Yeah, I think he's in All-Australian squad in his first year, something like that, or his second year. I mean,
he's
as a half forward.
half forward.
Yeah.
Now that you've retired, what's the one thing that you miss the most about playing?
The camaraderie. Yeah, the locker room.
Yeah. If you had to pick one of your ex-teammates to have a shot after the siren in a grand final, 40 metres out on an acute angle, who's the one player that you're saying, I want you to have this kick?
Paddy Ryder. Paddy Ryder was a beautiful, beautiful kick.
He could almost banana it, wouldn't he? I've never seen a man check side banana and snap, from distance.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go, Paddy. Well done. And then your personal favourite Mad Monday outfit or day? I think is the question I asked Joel Salad because Geelong, I think Geelong do it the best.
Yeah, they do.
Now it's quite private, but I think back in your day there would have been one or two. So what's your best Mad Monday kit or the best you've seen?
Best kit I've seen. I used to live with Scott Gumbleton for a long period of time. And Gumby thrived on the Mad Monday. I remember coming home one day from a Mad Monday and Gumby was standing in our hallway at our house in a shopping bag holding a stop sign. And that was that was it.
Gumby, that's not surprising.
No idea.
It's just so quiet during the year, and you can just if you have a little coffee, he's like, just get me to the end of the season. Oh, what a man! Well, you've played with some great blokes.
Yeah,
I must say we've been lucky to cross paths with a fair few, some ripping fellas, and we just named a few. I'll go to the segment now before we talk a bit of NFL. But Milwaukee Tools, they've been massive. As you know, I wouldn't be here without them. They're a huge sponsor and support of this show. Now, I told you, you're not coming on here and not going home with something. And this time, we've got the biggest prize we've ever had, which is great timing, Wispy. How do you go in the garden? We've got the brand new lawnmower here, the dual base starter pack as well. How do you go in the garden?
Not great. The garden is full of some landmines as well. I've got a bulldog and an Australian Shepherd, and they
no.
everywhere. So I'm gonna have to do some packing up. No, it'll come in very handy.
There
very
you go.
handy.
You'll be slicing and dicing all kinds of things with the lawnmower from Milwaukee Tools. I'll tell you what pisses me off before we get to your handiest moment. When you're walking down the street, concrete, and there's just a big landmine. And it's like, I get it, maybe once or twice, you haven't got a bag or something. But when it's smushed and then it's all, it's all down, someone stood in it, 4 bastards stood, it's like, fucking clean it up. I honestly hate seeing it. It does me head in. I don't have a dog, so maybe I don't, maybe I don't understand as much. But you're not one of those blokes, are you, that lets your dog just put a landmine down, do you?
When you got little ones in the backyard as well running around, you want to make sure that as soon as you see something, you pick it up straight away.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing worse. So, product features and benefits here. We've got the optimized steel deck design, push start and self-propulsion. I can't even say it's the capabilities. Reaches full throttle in under a second and comes with an 8-amp starter pack to get you started. So our friends here from Milwaukee Tools are looking after you here. The lawnmowers, they look fantastic. And I tell you what, they're heavy. Getting them in here was something else. So big shout out to Brado that helped me out getting it in here. Milwaukee Tools, when I think of your handiest moment, there's a few to me, but I'm going to ask you before I tell you my one. What is your Milwaukee Tools handiest moment of your career? If you could think of one moment that stands out, what would it be?
The handiest moment of my career, I think, Well, probably getting some feedback from my old man that my career wasn't going in the trajectory that I thought it was, and it was going out of the system very quickly. That was a very
Give us that conversation.
Handy.
Give us that conversation.
Well, he just said, like if you don't, you don't have to play footy because of mum and I, but what you're doing now is you're wasting yourself and you're embarrassing yourself. So he said, if you want to take this seriously, I've got someone that you need to go and speak to.
And that was the boxing?
That was the boxing coach.
There you go. So that would be your handiest moment.
Yeah. Well, that changed the trajectory of where I was heading.
What about, we're always so critical of ourselves, but what about on the field? If you think of something that you did that was a highlight, what would be your handiest? We all remember the sausage rolls, mate. There's got to be one.
I kicked a goal over against Freo at Subiaco one day from the pocket, and I turned to the crowd and just sort of gave them a bit of a wink, which I never really got very involved with the crowd, but I'd had some rough periods with the Western Australian crowd, so I thought, you can take this one, you guys.
That is very handy. There you go, the Milwaukee Tool's handiest moment with Jobe Watson. I love the fact it was against Freo. Everyone does say that the Perth crowds are brutal. I think you kind of get, I don't know, playing there, it is hostile, but it's so hostile when you go to Essendon or anywhere else. But a lot of players do say that it was tough.
Yeah. I mean, that particular game, maybe 5 minutes before, Krause, who I was playing on, he kicked a goal off me, and as a tagger, he's sort of giving it to me as we're running back. So I didn't say anything after I kicked that one on him. I just sort of smiled and he just laughed.
Yeah, he would have hated it as well. If there was a man that used to squeal when his man got out goal side, geez, you could hear him on the field.
Well, he probably could hear Ross in his head go screaming in the box.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get to a bit of NFL before we round out. We love our NFL, and we're both heavily involved with our Ausmerican Aces Fantasy League that you'll see all over our social media this year. We spoke about it earlier. You love listening to your podcast. I absolutely froth it. What do you think is going to happen this year? We're only, as this podcast comes out, it'll be 2 weeks in, but who are the teams that you think will take it out, and just some things that you're really looking forward to watching this year?
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing if Detroit can continue on. They obviously had a really good year last year. There's a big hype around them. They've got a really good offensive line, good defensive line. Can they protect Jared Goff? I think that's a good storyline. They've been not as overly successful franchise for a long period of time. Looking forward to seeing what Philly can do again, whether they can back up their incredible year last night with that young defensive line, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, really heavy Georgia feel to that defensive line. Dallas looked really impressive against the Giants. I thought one of the great storylines of the year was the Rodgers and Jets. So that was just incredibly deflating to watch that.
How deflated were you?
It was sickening watching it, wasn't it?
It's still when I bring it up, I get flat, and they broke the record. So I think the record was 2009. They smashed the records of that first game, 22 million viewers or something.
Yep.
And to see him go down without even completing a pass, mate, it was. And not only that, when you get injured, say someone gets injured, you go, you know what, he's going to come back.
He's going to come back.
There's a chance, we still think that, I think he will, but there's now a chance we might not even see him again.
Even if it was just like a high ankle sprain, he's out for a month. You could have moved past that relatively quickly. But for him to be out for a year and an Achilles and just, with the hard knocks, and you're just so excited about him and the Jets, it was just going to be a great storyline, but really unfortunate.
Well, you're a leader. You're a strong leader. What do you do if you're the GM of that football club? Because the quarterback they've only got 2 and Aaron Rodgers was 1. So now they've got to go, they need to get someone. Do you think they need to back in their young stud, Wilson, who they've spent a lot of draft capital? I think he was taken 2nd overall a couple of years ago, with Aaron Rodgers mentoring him and doing a fantastic job, as we saw on Hard Knocks. Do you think that's the right play, or you think you need to bring in someone? And if it is someone, who would it be?
I'd call Brady, see what he's doing.
I think that would happen, but I think Brady
has said no.
Well, he's got the family stuff going on. Like I was saying, put yourself in Brady's shoes. What do you think he would say?
Well, I think that he would say no. I mean, he retired from all sort of reports was because of the family life, and he wanted his kids were all at high school now and in Florida, and he needed to be settled there. So, like it wasn't the game hadn't gone past him. It was just that, he had to prioritise something else.
This would be burning him, wouldn't it? Because there'd be a lot of people in the media like us, and it's anyone. Everyone's saying the only option is Brady because there's no one really else out there.
There's no one as good as Rodgers, obviously.
Yeah.
And Zach Wilson, I mean, you run with him. You hope that the offensive line is better.
It's horrendous at the moment.
Yeah. Though. Becton looked a bit shaky, and you just hope that the O-line can hold up. They've got a good running game. They've got a good defense. They've got excellent wide receiver. Maybe that's enough, but you're not going to get the Jets. I don't think the Jets aren't going to be the team that they could have been this year with, obviously, without Rodgers.
I just wanted a game, just one game with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I think you've got Garrett in your team. Garrett, yeah. Even though he still dominated, you've got to remember he did put up numbers with Wilson.
That's true.
So it's not too scary, everyone out there. But just shattered.
Yeah.
It honestly felt like a death.
The whole air went out of the stadium.
It's just like we've lost someone because of the fact that he's 39 and he's only on a 2-year contract, I think, and they've put pretty much everything around, all the pieces are perfect for for them to potentially go on, and then they lose their number one. It's something else, mate. What about Tony? Like, think about Tony. His first game for the Chiefs, he's a wide receiver, one, and he's dropped 5 balls and had an absolute stinker. What do you like? I'm a big believer that he'll come out and play really well the following week and the season to go. But what do you think of that scenario?
Yeah, I think. They did talk about he missed a fair bit of the preseason. I think he had knee surgery. So the pressure and the social media reactions to all these players, whether it's positive or negative, is so extreme.
I think he deleted his Twitter.
Yeah, but that is the game. That's what they sign up for. I really like him as a player, but it just seems like he hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's his problem. When he's with the Giants, it was hamstrings, and then it was last year was hamstrings too, and then there was a knee complaint. He's obviously got talent, a first round pick from the Giants. So it's just whether or not he can stay healthy. I think Chiefs with. Is it Clark who signed the 1-year deal last week?
Jones? What's his name? No, I don't think.
No, Chris Jones.
I think Chris Jones.
So he's back. He's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Kelsey, whether he comes back this week or not, I mean, he's going to be obviously huge. I think that the AFC is again stacked, really stacked. The NFC feels like I really like the Green Bay Packers. I think that they're a really good side. I expect them to play playoffs. But it feels like it's going to be the AFC there's probably 6 teams who are loaded in the AFC and maybe 2 looking really strong in the NFC so far.
It's almost like, the AFC might just bang each other up and then to the Super Bowl and they'll be worn out. You got your San Fran, Dallas,
Philly.
And
they
Philly,
feel like they're the 3. Yeah.
And maybe like a Smoky, the Detroit Lions or something.
Someone like that. Yeah.
So just give me a quick tip on the Super Bowl, or your AFC, NFC.
I think Philly from the NFC and the AFC, the Chargers.
Like it.
Although I don't like their coach.
Nah, they need to do something because they keep, I think, they've spent, I think they've, as we record this podcast after week 1, they had scored 90 points in their last 3 games and they're 0-3 in those 3 games. So just get your defense right.
Yeah.
Righto, to close it out, we love the new segment, RIXX on Tour. This is where we've all had plenty of off-season trips. You've mentioned Hibbo and a few boys. I got you the Soho Cherries Wispy. These are our number 1 sellers, and I think these are almost sold out again. So I wanted to make sure that you're in the best shades possible. So, mate, there you go. Throw them on as I ask that question. And everyone out there, rixeyewear.com.au. Use our discount code ACES if you want to look like Wispy. Spring Carnival around the corner as well, which, is it Ana Visto? I didn't mean to bring that up. You've got to update the listeners because it's the people's, we watched her, and unfortunately, do you want to just give everyone an update? What happened?
Yeah, just, she was first up in the Memsey, and first up is typically her best run, and she just wasn't quite there for her. So it's normally a pretty good tell that it's time to start the next journey of her life. So she's off to the paddock to become a mum, and she's going to be served by a Toronado. So that's the end of her running days.
Just on that, because there's a lot of punters out there and a lot of horse racing enthusiasts. When the message comes through, give us an insight where you were, what happened.
Well, we sort of knew that if she wasn't going to run, if she didn't run well, then that was probably where it was going to go. So we knew in advance. But like I was on the track, I was in the mounting yard. Like I've never been so excited for like a moment. Then when the gates opened, I saw her running, and then I was watching the splits, and I was like, oh, he's rating her beautifully. Like she's not going too hard here. And at the 600, when he started to go for her and she started to go, and I was like, I got excited. And then when it got to the turn, I was like, oh no, we're in trouble here.
Out of gas. Yeah. There you go. So it wasn't as heartbreaking as I kind of thought. No. You kind of had a plan going into that race.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. What about, before I get to the RIXX on tour, but what's next? Are you going to go out and get another horse?
Well, the syndicate, we've got to decide what we want to do. So it's with Tommy Bell Chambers and Hooksy and myself. So we'd like to keep it going, but we'll wait and see, and we're going to try and find another one. Very lucky that we got a good one.
There'd be some funds in that syndicate, I would have thought, to roll it around.
There would be, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you got to go back to the well, don't you? Surely get another one. Do you get any? Do you name the horse as well?
No, we didn't get to name. We were a minority share. So,
do you want to name? Like, is that something that you want to get to?
It'd be nice, but yeah, not really that fussed.
What name would you have if you could?
Well, I'm in another one by Alabama Express.
Nice.
So I put up the nomination calling him Alabama Slammer.
I really like that. And I think a lot of punters like those fun names as well. Alabama Slammer. Righto, back to RIXX on tour. So every year we don't make finals, or one day hopefully we win a premiership. But we all know there's an off season, and what I want you to tell me is, if you had the RIXXs on, you're looking for some sun. You got a week. Who are the two blokes you're bringing with you on tour in the RIXX?
Well, I did a lot of traveling with Teddy Richards and David Hill. So it was all over the world with those blokes, and went to St. Petersburg one time in Russia, and was there for Halloween. And so we went into a club over there, and it was the most typical like entrance into like a Russian gangster club. You walk in, got all these blokes, massive guys in turtlenecks with gold chains on the outside.
Wow.
And we were just sort of walking in, and we just sort of said to ourselves, like, let's have fun, but let's not stuff around here. This is not the place where you want to get into any trouble. Let's just be very quiet and calm and enjoy ourselves.
And Hilly's a big boy.
He's a big man, yeah.
So everyone would have been looking like, who's this big gangster?
Correct, yeah.
There you go. RIXX on tour in Russia with the boys. Fantastic, mate. Well, that's all I've got for you. I really appreciate your time. I love chatting to you, mate. I'll get you back on every week if you're available. But I just appreciate your time, and to everyone out there that tunes in every week, really appreciate you, and we love your support. We love your messages. If you enjoy this podcast, let me know. Comment. We always pass it on to our guests. But yeah, hit the subscribe button, hit like. Continue to share our Ausmerican Aces podcast and our stories. We're doing some cool things, and there's more things to come as we build. And yeah, we're starting to get to the real business end now. AFL Grand Final around the corner as well. Will you be calling any of those games, Wispy?
I've got the Giants and Port on Saturday over at Adelaide Oval, and then not sure what the schedule looks like.
Yeah, well, all the best with that. Hope you get a call in the big one. And yeah, once again, thanks so much for your time, mate. Appreciate it.
Good to see you, Tommy.
One more time, because I really mean it. I just want to say a massive thank you for all the support you continue to give us at the Ausmerican Aces. If you want to further support us, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the follow button so you can keep up to date with all our exciting shows and announcements. Righto, now it's time to give our sponsors a massive plug. Lead the charge with Milwaukee. Performance, power, precision, no petrol hassles. Learn more at milwaukeetool.com.au. Milwaukee, nothing but heavy duty. Aces, I know I always talk about the RIXXs, but I got to offer you the discount again in case you've forgotten, or in case you're sleeping under a rock. We have a special discount code for everyone that listens to this podcast or watch the podcast. It's ACES. Head online to rixeyewear.com.au and use the discount code ACES and you'll get 20% off. That's right, 20% off, 1/5 at checkout and free express shipping. So head online, rixeyewear.com.au and check it out.